Hello, this is C.H.E.K. Welcome back to my video blogs. Today our topic is follow the food to find your future. And that I mean for sure. Not just your future, but all of our future, for reasons I will describe today. Some of you have heard me talk about these things before, but these are things that can never be restated enough because it takes us a lot of reinforcement and mental digestion and life experience to get to the point where we realize things need to change. This information and much more that is relevant to this topic is in my audio workbook program titled You Are What You Eat. And I not only describe a lot of the trickery that governments play with food, food labeling, food laws, additives, preservatives, colorings, emulsifiers, stabilizers. I talk about toxicity in plastics, cans, and all sorts of things, and give you quite a number of practical solutions that you can use immediately. So let's take a look at what I really want to share with you today in this brief exposure. First of all, it's important to remember that you are what you eat. Remember, your body, according to current research, you turn over every single cell in your body, from your teeth to your bones to your toenails, in an annual cycle. It used to be thought that it took 7 years, but current research shows no, it's actually happening every year. You're turning over about 2 million red blood cells a second. So though you're used to seeing your body in the mirror and relating to it, and it seems fairly fixed and consistent to you, your body is really more like a constant flow, just like stars moving in galaxies and water moving in a fountain. If you get far enough from a big fountain, it looks like a tree of ice, but as you approach it, you can see it's actually moving. So we're constantly in flux, and we're turning over all the cells of our body, and that means that your cells can't be any better than the food you're eating or the water you're drinking. So when you consider that your body is being constantly remade out of the key macronutrients and micronutrients that are essential for nature to weave the structure of your body together, well, just like you wouldn't want to build a building out of cheap materials, or for example in third world countries and places like Miami, unfortunately, where you get mafia deals and all sorts of shady stuff going on, and concrete being made poorly. When even a mild earthquake comes, the whole foundation crumbles. Why? Because poor quality materials. So we don't want our body to be susceptible to destruction from minor protuberances, here as an analogy to an earthquake, which could be exercise, or going through a life challenge such as losing your job, or going through a divorce, or a death in the family, or any number of things such as an illness. Now, it's also true that you are what you do not excrete. So for a variety of reasons, a person could be eating a decent diet, well, even an organic diet, and if you're doing things like consuming recreational drugs, medical drugs, smoking cigarettes, or you're near a city or in a city or in buildings. For example, environmental research shows that almost any building is 10 times more toxic when you're in the building than than the level of toxins you're getting outside the building, even in a place like downtown New York City, due to all the chemicals used in building supplies such as pressboard, glues, and all sorts of things, carpets, outgas, all sorts of chemicals. And these types of things are something that we have to deal with. So sometimes our body may not have the ability to detoxify as quickly as things are coming in, so then we become what we don't excrete. So when we look into these issues of food, it's important to remember that in general, research shows that only about 4 to 6% of the food eaten worldwide is actually organic food. So that means about 94% of all the food eaten in the world is grown commercially. That's a lot of problems. That's a lot of money being spent on food that is of extremely low quality. And this has a lot to do with a sort of an old, outdated notion from the nutritional sciences that food is just calories, but you can save money by buying cheaper food like you shop for gasoline, which is an extremely dangerous idea. Very soon along the way here, I'm going to be releasing a series of video blogs on the earth and on the farming systems and on chemicals and on all the things that we need to know about in concert with food democracy. Now, the program will be called the Earth Warrior Series. And I will be getting into one of the topics is food as information, where I'll show you all sorts of interesting concepts about understanding food as a source of information and how information directs the cells and the functions of your body and affects your mind. What I wanted to get into today, aside from what I've covered, is that we have to remember that commercially farmed produce equals toxic soils. We have huge problems with the use of chemical fertilizers. There are regular applications of herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, rodenticides, and other chemicals, which, if you study organic farming and biodynamic farming, are really an indication that the farming is of very low quality. Sir Albert Howard and the famous British organic farmer from the 40s and earlier, Friend Sykes, both stated that the pests and the weeds provide the farmer their report card. And people like Arden Anderson also say these types of things. So what we're actually realizing is that as the use of these chemicals has progressed, the numbers in volume has gone up and up and up and up and up, just like the use of medical drugs keeps going up, but we keep getting sicker and sicker and sicker, which doesn't indicate at all that the medical system is working to do anything to produce long-term health solutions at all. And so as we keep using these farming chemicals, we have to keep using more because the nature and the quality of the soil gets diminished, and therefore the vital life force of the plants and the ability for the plants to be effectively nourished and have healthy immune systems is progressively diminished. And so you get to the ridiculous point where Monsanto makes plants that grow, that produce chemicals within them, and people are really so often detached from reality that they eat such things without realizing they're actually eating things like glyphosate. And I will feature glyphosate in my upcoming series because we now, with glyphosate, have a whole new epidemic of very, very serious problems going on in the environment and in human beings, and that stuff is littered throughout the food supply. Originally, pesticides came in two classes, estrogenic and neurogenic, or neurotoxic. Estrogenic basically operates like the birth control pill. It elevates the estrogens in the insect's body to the point that it can't reproduce. Neurotoxic are chemicals left over from biological warfare and experimentations and uses, and they spray that on your food, and those chemicals attack the nervous system of the organism. But as I'll show you in the upcoming series, glyphosate attacks a different pathway, which is also very, very dangerous and not something that you want in your food. For those of you that want to learn more about the soil before that series comes out, I do have my Nutrition the Dirt Facts video, which is available on DVD, or you can see it on my YouTube channel, broken into the 10-minute chunks, because it was many years ago I filmed it and they would only allow 10-minute chunks at that time. So aside from the soils being toxic with chemical fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, and rodenticides, there's also repeated spraying of chemicals in storage. So, for example, grains. Some research I found said that typically grains are sprayed with pesticides and other chemicals as many as 10 times in the warehouse before they get to the food manufacturers or to your plate. So whenever you're dealing with grains or commercially raised coffee, for example, has very, very high levels of pesticides in it and other chemicals. And as soon as you add hot water to it or you cook those types of foods, you get all sorts of problems. And one of the things that the research I found showed is that when you have a given food, say you've got carrots, and you're cooking that with maybe spaghetti, or you're cooking it with some other kind of noodle or some other kind of vegetable, the researchers showed that all the research that's been done on pesticides usually looks at them individually. But when these things are combined, as in when cooking, the researchers showed that they create new chemicals that have never been seen before. And why that's critical to understand is because that means that your liver has never been able to have exposure and therefore could not have developed the enzymatic pathways or developed a mechanism for neutralizing those chemicals and eliminating from your body. And whenever your body can't get chemicals detoxified, if the liver can't handle them, the liver, kidney, and detox systems, they're shuttled into your fat to protect you so that they don't get into contact with your nervous system and organs. And this is an issue because we have a huge problem with obesity today, and a lot of people don't realize even though they're starving themselves, or you get people going to the gym exercising like crazy and can't lose weight, which I've seen over and over again, they don't realize it's because their body is trying to protect them so that they can survive by not exposing them to the chemicals stored in their fat, yet they're eating all this packaged crap, gym protein powders, garbage vitamins, and maybe I'll do a section on vitamins at some point because that's another whole debacle. And so what happens is you're getting people that are exercising themselves hard, eating poor quality foods, eating canned and packaged stuff, and forcing the body into a situation where to protect itself from starvation and maintain blood sugar levels, it has to liberate energy from toxic fat in the body, which is a great way to end up with any number of diseases. So we not only have repeated spraying and storage, but we also have chemical alteration for long-term storage and shipping. For example, when they ship stuff in ships, they put it in a sealed refrigeration system. They lower the temperature and they infuse it with a gas called ether that slows the metabolism of the plant and actually kind of puts it in a sort of suspended animation. Some of you may have gotten these apples that you think you're getting a good deal on. You bite them and they're all punky and funky inside, and that's typically what happens when a lot of these things are stored with chemicals. For example, if you're getting apples or cherries or things like that in winter when they would not normally grow, it's almost always an indication that they've been put into these special refrigeration systems where they spray them with chemicals and slow the metabolism of the plant down and do all sorts of nasty stuff to them. And they even paint a lot of these. They spray color on a lot of these fruits so that they look healthier than they are, which is a whole other subject. But, we have to realize that when you're investing in food, you are literally not only investing in your future, but the food that you put money into is funding the corporations, and therefore you are voting for those practices. And people tell me all the time they can't afford organic food, but I talk to them for 5 minutes and find they're on multiple drugs. They're running from doctor to doctor and therapist to therapist. And I say, look how much time you're wasting that you wouldn't have to spend if you just take care of yourself. And look how much money you're pumping into destructive practices that completely wipe out the soil and many other things that I will share in my upcoming series. So we also have toxic exposure to plastic and aluminum cans. There is a massive amount of plastics used in food packaging and food everything today, from shipping to packaging to processing. So the utensils used, the bowls used, and all sorts of stuff. Anytime that you're dealing with plastics like that, you're opening yourself up to xenoestrogens and other chemicals and plastics, none of which do anything good for you, whether it be your hormonal system or any aspect of your physiology. Aluminum cans are bad news. I can't even tell you how many people that I've done functional medicine testing on and found high levels of aluminum in their body, which really screws up your immune system. And then right there you also have right along with it mercury, and both aluminum and mercury are common in vaccinations as well and other medical gifts of sort. Then we also have to consider, if you think of plants as conscious, which they are, there's now lots of research showing that, and anybody who's adequately developed knows that, then you have to ask yourself, what are we doing to the beings that are supporting us? I mean, this is a spiritual perspective, but I know a lot of you out there probably have had the experience of knowing how much nicer it is to have plants in your environment and feeling how they warm the area. And many of you have probably developed relationships with plants, and there's great studies showing that plants are very interactive with humans, and that how humans behave and relate to plants has a lot of influence on their health. Interestingly enough, I found research showing that during the First and Second World War, when the men had to leave the farms to go fight the war and the women took over, the crop yields were higher. Disease resistance was improved because women were nurturing the plants, not treating them like objects. And this is old research. And I like old research because it wasn't funded oftentimes by somebody with a corporate agenda, so it's often more reliable. Then we have to ask about commercially raised animals. My God, most of us are aware that animals are sentient. So when you look into how commercial animals are raised, be it hogs, chickens, sheep, cows, milking cows, I could go on for hours on that. It's absolutely, utterly disgusting and hurts my heart and soul just thinking about it. We also have to remember, some researchers show that it takes an animal about 6 pounds of produce, such as a cow or even a human, to produce about 1 pound of animal flesh. And if you're eating commercially raised animals or even commercially farmed fish, unless stated with clear distinctions as to how they're farming those fish, you're basically got animals that are eating a lot of low-grade, poor quality crap food. A lot of the grains that are rejected by the FDA and food inspectors for high levels of mycotoxins are then sold to the cattle industry to feed animals, and the poisons cause them to add fat, which makes them fat and faster. And if you look into the things that they are allowed to feed animals in the United States and other countries, you see some crazy stuff like engine oil, plastic chips, cement dust. Some even have approved dead animal remains. I mean, when I researched this, I just about fell out of my chair. And, and this is stuff that you don't see behind the scenes. So there's also a lot of environmental destruction. If you look at places like North Carolina, South Carolina, some of these places, whole water table has been destroyed from all the runoff of urine and fecal material from large commercial farms. And it's extremely disruptive to the environment and toxic to everyone and everything. And that stuff gets picked up in the hydrological cycle and gets moved all over the place. So you might think they're over there, but you're getting some of it here. There's no way around it. So all this leads to body-mind health challenges. We need to remember what I call the ECHO concept, which is an acronym I developed to help people understand the reality of these things. E for energy, C for chemistry, H for hydration, O for organisms. Whatever we do to the environment has an effect on the energy, chemistry, the water, hydration, and the organisms in the environment. And since we eat from the environment, that insult is mirrored back in us. If we care for the environment and we're conscious about the kind of energetic inputs we use, and we balance the chemistry so that it's favorable for life as a general theme, and we use proper clean water, not toxic poisonous water, then we raise healthy organisms that live a happy, healthy life. And naturally, when we consume that, that it enhances our own echo, i.e. our own energy, chemistry, hydration, and organisms, which is what life is really all about. Because if you disrupt energy, chemistry, hydration, or the organisms you eat, it mirrors itself right in your body. Also, all these chemicals have been well documented to destroy the microbiome of your gut, and all sorts of problems like leaky gut syndrome, irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's, all sorts of stuff is linked to destruction and damage or dysbiosis in the microbiome, which is a big problem worldwide. So you really don't save money at all. So what can you do? One, buy certified organic. Look for certified organic food. If you can't find certified organic food, well, and you can always look for community-supported agriculture. You can ask questions. So go to your farmer's market. Find out if there's a farmers association in your town. Call the Chamber of Commerce and ask if there's a farming association or an organic farmers association. Research on the internet. Check into these things. Remember, if you don't have a lot of money, the first thing to go free-range organic with is meat, because it bioaccumulates toxins. So if you're going to spend money on high-quality ocean-caught fish. And there's some fish farms that actually do have very high standards, but you got to look carefully. And by then washing your vegetables carefully and following the advice in my You Are What You Eat program, you can progressively transition as you're financially able. And the other thing is, research shows you need about 1/3 less food on organic food because it's more nutrient dense. Follow the principles in my You Are What You Eat program and drink good water. If you go to www.findaspring.com, you can find high quality water sources all over the world. And remember, as I share in my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, you should be drinking on average about half your body weight in ounces of water a day. And the new updated version of How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy will be out any minute now, so you can order it on the website. And I've included the essential 4 doctor categories and how to develop your own core values, so you can use the 4 doctors with the Eat, Move, and Be Healthy system. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Paul C.H.E.K. Hope you enjoyed the video. Remember, every dollar you spend is either funding corporate destruction of the world and destroying your health, or you're funding the people that are taking care of the soil, taking care of the planet, and farming good food and enhancing your echo. See you soon.